Sometimes necessary changes mean goodbye to outdated methodologies. Onwards and upwards. Hash marketing innovation, hash Nura. The words from Brianna Wells' LinkedIn post burn on my smartphone screen as I sat alone in the upscale restaurant, waiting for Robert Klein from Sterling Financial to arrive for our breakfast meeting. Beside the text was a photo of Brianna standing proudly with Taylor Rivera in front of the Bluecrest Creative logo, both women beaming with unrestrained optimism about the company's new direction. Outdated methodologies. My methodology. 15 years of relationship building, crisis navigation, and award-winning campaigns reduced to a dismissive hashtag. Just yesterday morning, I'd been the marketing director at Bluecrest Creative. Today, I was. What exactly? My phone vibrated again with another text message, the fifth in the last hour. Jessica. Dana, that LinkedIn post is outrageous. Call me immediately. Greenway Foods is reconsidering our relationship with Bluecrest. I placed the phone face down on the table, took a deep breath, and straightened my posture just as Robert entered the restaurant. At 58, the marketing director of Meridian Financial carried himself with the confident gravitas of someone who had survived the 2008 financial crisis and emerged stronger. Today, however, his face was flushed with barely contained anger. Outdated methodologies, he said without preamble, sliding into the booth across from me. Is she referring to the approach that won Sterling 3 industry awards last year? I maintained my professional composure, a skill honed through decades of client crisis management. Change is part of business, Robert. Not all change is progress, he counted, his voice tight. I've been with Bluecrest with you for 8 years. Through the financial crisis, through our rebranding, through everything. And yesterday, I get a call from some Taylor person who couldn't even pronounce our chief investment officer's name correctly. Robert leaned forward, his expression intense. What happened, Dana? The real story. There was no point hiding it anymore. Brianna's public post had made the situation painfully clear. I was let go. My methods were deemed obsolete. Robert's laugh was short and harsh. Obsolete? The Sterling account has grown 27% under your guidance. Our trust metrics are at an all-time high. Taylor Rivera is very accomplished in the digital space, I offered diplomatically. She brings a fresh perspective. Instagram followers don't build financial trust, Robert said flatly. So, what are your plans? The question caught me off guard, though I should have expected it. I'm exploring some options. Be specific, he pressed. I hesitated, then decided honesty was best. I'm joining a new venture. Summit Edge Marketing, a boutique agency focused on relationship-driven strategies. Robert pulled out his phone and made a note. And when will this agency be operational? We're finalizing details now. Should be fully functional within 2 weeks. He nodded, seemingly satisfied. I'll need information for our procurement department. The implications of his words hung in the air between us. I felt a complex mixture of gratitude for his loyalty and unease about the speed at which my professional world was transforming. Just 48 hours ago, I couldn't have imagined being in this position. But then again, I couldn't have imagined Brianna Wells so publicly dismissing the very approach that had built Bluecrest into what it was today. Flashback, the dismissal. Just yesterday morning, I had sat perfectly still in Brianna Wells' corner office, my hands folded in my lap as I processed her words. Your methods are outdated, she'd said, leaning against her glass desk with practiced casualness. The sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows caught on her expensive watch, a Cartier, if I wasn't mistaken. We need fresh perspectives that align with current marketing paradigms. Behind Brianna's shoulder, I could see downtown Fresno spread out below us. Somewhere in that vista was the small converted house where Bluecrest Creative had begun its life as Peterson Design Group 15 years ago. Back then, we were 6 passionate people with more ambition than resources. Now we occupied 3 floors of prime office space, with over 70 employees and a client roster that included some of the biggest names in the region. Dana, this is Taylor Rivera, Brianna continued, gesturing to the young woman standing beside her. She'll be taking over your accounts effective immediately. Taylor, with her perfect blowout and designer blazer, gave me what I assumed was meant to be a sympathetic smile. I'm really excited to build on the foundation you've established. Foundation? The word echoed in my mind as images flashed before me. The midnight strategy sessions during the 2008 financial crisis that saved Sterling Financial from collapse. The farm visits with Jessica from Greenway Foods, where we crafted the community harvest initiative that tripled their market share. The emergency calls with Thomas Wells when Valent faced that product recall disaster. My mother's voice suddenly surfaced in my memory. Dana, when someone can't see your value, it's not your job to convince them, it's your cue to move on. She told me that when I was 16 and devastated about being passed over for editor of the school newspaper despite having more experience than the boy who got the position. The advice had seemed simplistic then. Now, at 55, I recognized its wisdom. Valent, Greenway, and Sterling are our biggest accounts, I said calmly, my journalist training keeping my voice steady despite the emotional earthquake happening inside me. They've been with me for over a decade. They might be concerned about the transition. Brianna waved her hand dismissively. We've thought of that. Taylor will do introduction calls this week. Your severance package is generous, and Human Resources has the paperwork ready. I didn't argue. I didn't remind her that Thomas from Valent called me directly whenever they faced a PR crisis, not the Bucharest main line. I didn't mention how I'd helped Sterling Financial rebuild their brand after the financial crash when everyone else had abandoned them. I didn't point out that Jessica from Greenway Foods had been at my daughter's wedding last summer, or that we shared yoga classes on Saturday mornings. Instead, I stood up, smoothed my skirt, and nodded. I understand. I'll clear out my office. As I turned to leave, Brianna added, we'd appreciate it if you'd make this transition amicable for everyone involved. The implication was clear. Don't make waves. Don't call clients. Don't damage the agency's reputation. Of course, I replied. I've always been professional. I had maintained that professionalism as I walked back to my office, nodding cordially to colleagues who had no idea what had just transpired. Inside, though, I was cycling through grief, shock, and anger in rapid succession. My career at Bluecrest was ending, not with the celebration and gratitude I might have expected after 15 years of dedication, but with a sterile conversation about outdated methodologies and a severance package. Flashback, the journey. As I packed my belongings later that morning, carefully wrapping industry awards and client thank you plaques, memories of my professional journey unfurled before me like a film montage. I remembered my first day at Peterson Design Group. The small converted Victorian house downtown had creaky wooden floors and temperamental plumbing, but Harold Peterson had transformed it into a creative haven. I was 34 then, recently widowed, with an 8-year-old daughter and a determination to reinvent myself in the marketing world after years as a journalist. Michael's death from cancer had left Emily and me emotionally raw but strangely focused. Promise me you'll find work that matters, he'd said during those final, morphine haze days. Life's too short for anything else. When Harold Peterson interviewed me, something clicked. Journalists understand what makes people care about a story, he'd said, his eyes lighting up as he reviewed my portfolio. That's the foundation of good marketing. Anyone can learn the technical aspects, but you already know how to reach hearts. Those early years were a blur of exhilarating, scrappy chaos, but full of genuine passion for the work. We celebrated each new client with pizza parties in the conference room that doubled as our lunch area. Harold insisted on handwritten thank you notes for every project, a practice I maintained even as we grew. When I landed the Valent account in my second year, an achievement that doubled our annual revenue, Harold gave me a plaque that still sat on my desk, Relationships Before Transactions. I traced my fingers over those engraved words now, remembering how Harold's mentorship had shaped my approach to marketing. People don't buy from businesses, he often said. They buy from people they trust. Over the years, I'd watched the agency grow, evolve, and eventually sell to a larger marketing group when Harold retired. I'd navigated changes in leadership, survived 2 rebrands, and adapted to shifting industry trends. But I'd always maintained that core philosophy. Genuine relationships were the foundation of lasting success. Now, that philosophy had been deemed outdated by a CEO who had been at the helm for less than 3 months. As I placed the final award in my box, Agency Professional of the Year, given to me just 4 months ago at the Western States Marketing Awards, the irony wasn't lost on me. Beside it, I laid my company laptop and badge, officially severing my ties to Bluegrass Creative. My phone buzzed with a text from my daughter, Emily. How did the meeting go? Still on for dinner tonight? I smiled despite everything. Definitely. And I have some news. Love you. As I took one last look around my office, I felt something unexpected beneath the shock and disappointment, a quiet certainty. They thought they were ending something today, but perhaps they were simply clearing the path for a new beginning. Flashback, dinner with Emily. That evening, the restaurant was busy for a Tuesday. Emily had already secured a booth by the time I arrived, and the sight of her, my confident, brilliant 25-year-old daughter, instantly lifted my spirits. With her dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail and her father's intelligent green eyes, she had grown into a woman who navigated the world with remarkable poise. So, what's this mysterious news? She asked after we ordered. Did they finally make you partner? I took a deep breath. Actually, I was let go today. Emily's expression shifted from shock to outrage in seconds. What? After 15 years? That's... It's business, I interrupted gently. New leadership, new vision. It's not right, she insisted, her voice rising slightly. You built that agency, Mom. Everyone knows Bluecrest would be nothing without you. I smiled at her fierce loyalty. Emily had grown up alongside Bluecrest, spending afternoons in my office drawing at a small table in the corner while I worked on campaigns, later interning during college breaks. She understood the blood, sweat, and tears I'd poured into the place. It's okay, really, I reassured her, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. Maybe it's time for a change. Emily studied me over her water glass, her expression shifting to one of careful analysis. You're taking this suspiciously well. What are you planning? That was my daughter, always able to read between my carefully composed lines, a skill she'd inherited from her father. Do you remember Jason Chen and Veronica Patel? They left Bluecrest last year. She nodded. Your former creative director and the digital strategist. Of course. They've been trying to convince you to join them in starting something new, a boutique agency focused on relationship marketing rather than just chasing trends. Recognition dawned on Emily's face. And you've been saying no because of your loyalty to Bluecrest. Exactly. But now you're free, she finished for me, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Free. The word resonated through me like a bell tone. As our food arrived, I realized I hadn't thought of it that way, but Emily was right. After years of balancing increasingly corporate demands with my client-centered approach, I was suddenly unencumbered by those constraints. I called Jason right after the meeting, I admitted. We're having breakfast tomorrow to discuss me coming on as a founding partner at Summit Edge Marketing. Emily raised her glass. To new beginnings. And to Brianna Wells eventually realizing what she threw away. As we ate, I shared more details about the dismissal, Brianna's condescension, Taylor's manufactured sympathy, the clear message that my methods were considered obsolete. Tell me about Brianna, Emily said. She came from the tech world, right? I nodded. She was a marketing VP at a Silicon Valley startup that had a successful IPO last year. The board brought her in to modernize Bluecrest's approach. I took a sip of water. Her previous company specialized in disruptive growth strategies, quick scaling, aggressive digital tactics, constant pivoting. Very different from our relationship-based model. And they expect that to work with clients like Sterling Financial and Greenway Foods? Emily shook her head incredulously. Those companies specifically chose Bluecrest because of your approach. Well, that's the gamble they're taking, I replied. What about your clients? Valen and the others, won't they be upset? I hesitated. I signed a non-solicitation agreement years ago. I can't directly poach clients. But if they came to you on their own, that would be different, Emily suggested, her marketing degree showing. I suppose, but I don't know if they will. Companies form relationships with agencies, not individuals. Even as I said it, I knew it wasn't entirely true. Thomas had called me directly just last week about Valen's upcoming product launch. Jessica had texted me pictures from her daughter's graduation. Robert had sent me a handwritten card after our last successful campaign for Sterling Financial. But I couldn't count on sentiment in the business world. Brianna would undoubtedly be working to secure those relationships, probably scheduling meetings already. Either way, I told Emily, looking down at my halibut dinner, I need to move forward, not backward. My phone buzzed in my purse, then again and again. I pulled it out to find 3 texts from 3 different numbers. Thomas, heard the news. Need to talk tomorrow. Jessica. Dana, please call me. Urgent. Robert, this is unacceptable. Breakfast tomorrow. I looked up at Emily, who raised an eyebrow at my expression. What? She asked. It seems, I said slowly, a mixture of vindication and surprise warming my chest, that those agency-client relationships might be more personal than Brianna realized. Flashback. Summit Edge beginnings. The next morning, I sat across from Jason Chen and Veronica Patel at Riverside Cafe, the aroma of fresh coffee mingling with the excitement of new possibilities. Jason, at 53, had the intense creative energy that had made him one of the region's most respected creative directors before he left Bluecrest. Veronica, 48, balanced his creative flights with her incisive strategic mind, a skill she'd honed at tech companies before joining the agency world. We've been waiting for this moment, Jason admitted, sliding a folder across the table. We've held off on officially launching Summit Edge until we could approach you again. I opened the folder to find detailed business plans, financial projections, and a proposed organizational structure with my name listed as founding partner and client relations lead. You two have been busy, I observed, impressed by the thoroughness of their planning. Veronica, always direct, leaned forward. Dana, we've watched Bluecrest drift further from Harold's vision every year. The corporate takeover was just the final straw for us. When Brianna was appointed, we knew it was only a matter of time before they pushed you out, too. I thought about Veronica's background, born to Indian immigrant parents who had built a successful grocery chain through personal connections with their community. For her, business had always been inseparable from relationships. The industry is changing, I acknowledged, but that doesn't mean relationships and trust are obsolete. Exactly. Jason nodded enthusiastically, his salt and pepper hair falling across his forehead. His creative genius had always been rooted in emotional intelligence, understanding what made people care. All this talk about disruption misses the point. Good marketing has always been about connecting with people, understanding their needs, and building trust. The tools change, but the fundamentals don't. I appreciated their passion, but remained cautious. I believe in your vision, our vision, but starting from scratch isn't easy. It took years to build Bluecrest's client base. Veronica and Jason exchanged glances. We have something to show you, Veronica said, pulling out her tablet. She opened an email and turned it toward me. This came in last night. It's an inquiry from Westlake Industries, a medium-sized manufacturing company that had been on Bluecrest's prospect list for years. How did they find you? You haven't even launched yet, I asked, surprised. Jason smiled. Word gets around. A former colleague mentioned our plans to their marketing director, who's apparently frustrated with their current agency. As I continued reading, my phone rang. Thomas Wells from Valent. I should take this, I said, stepping away from the table. Dana, Thomas began without preamble. What the hell is going on at Bluecrest? I got a call yesterday introducing me to someone named Taylor who's supposedly taking over our account. I chose my words carefully. There's been a leadership change, Thomas. The new CEO has different ideas about client management. Different ideas. He sounded incredulous. We've worked together for a decade. You know our business inside and out, and they think they can just swap you out like an interchangeable part? We hired Bluecrest because of you. His directness shouldn't have surprised me. Thomas had built Valent from a small electronics company into a regional powerhouse by valuing straightforward communication above all else. I appreciate your concern, I replied diplomatically. It's not concern, Dana. It's business, Thomas clarified. I'm meeting with this Taylor person today out of courtesy, but I want to know what your plans are. I hesitated. I can't solicit Bluecrest clients. You know that. I'm not asking you to solicit, Thomas said. I'm asking where you're going, because Valent may be interested in following. When I returned to the table, both Jason and Veronica could read my expression. Valent? Jason guessed. I nodded, still processing the conversation. And I have breakfast with Robert from Sterling Financial at 9:30, then a call with Jessica from Greenway at 11. Veronica leaned back, a slow smile spreading across her face. So, all three of Bluecrest's biggest accounts reached out to you within hours of your departure? Dana, that's not coincidence. It's not a done deal, I cautioned. They're loyal, but they're also businesses. Brianna will fight to keep them. With what? Jason asked. Taylor Rivera's Instagram following? These clients want substance, not style. As we continued our discussion, my phone buzzed with an email. It was from Brianna. Dana, regarding client transitions, please remember your contractual obligations. Any attempt to solicit Bluecrest clients will be met with immediate legal action. I trust you'll act professionally. Brianna Wells, CEO. I showed the email to Jason and Veronica. She's worried, Veronica observed, her dark eyes narrowing. She should be, Jason added. I looked between my two potential business partners, a decision crystallizing in my mind. Let's do this, I said finally. But we do it right. No solicitation, no legal gray areas. If these clients come to us, it will be entirely their decision. Veronica raised her coffee mug. To Summit Edge Marketing, founded on relationships built to last. As we clinked mugs, I felt something I hadn't expected, relief. This wasn't just about survival after being let go. This was about building something that truly reflected my values. Present day, the meeting with Robert. Now, as I sat with Robert at the restaurant, watching his reaction to Brianna's LinkedIn post, I realized just how quickly the professional landscape was shifting beneath my feet. Not all change is progress, Robert said, standing up. I need to make some calls. Expect to hear from our procurement team soon. As he left, my phone rang. Jessica from Greenway Foods, calling early. Dana, she began without greeting. I just saw Brianna's post. Is that why you left? Because she thinks relationship marketing is outdated? Jessica paused. Because if that's Bluecrest's new philosophy, we have a serious problem. Greenway's entire brand is built on relationships with farmers, with communities, with customers. I took a deep breath. I didn't leave by choice, Jessica. A pause. You were fired? Her tone conveyed disbelief. The term was restructuring, I clarified. But essentially, yes. Because my methods are outdated. This is unbelievable, Jessica continued, her normally measured voice rising with indignation. After everything you've done, the Farmland Heritage Campaign, the Community Harvest Initiative, these weren't just marketing successes, Dana. They captured the very soul of our company. Jessica had built Greenway Foods from her grandmother's recipes and a commitment to sustainable farming practices. For her, the relationships with local farmers weren't just marketing talking points. They were the foundation of her business philosophy. Jessica, I value our professional relationship immensely, but I can't solicit you. I reminded her gently. I don't need you to solicit anything, she interrupted. I'm informing you that Greenway will be reviewing our agency relationships immediately. Where can I reach you if we need to discuss alternatives? I gave her my personal contact information, a surreal feeling washing over me. Within 24 hours of being dismissed as obsolete, 3 major clients were independently reaching out to follow me. After ending the call, I sat alone at the table, processing everything. Brianna's post had been a strategic error, a public dismissal of the very approach her biggest clients valued. In trying to position Bluecrest as cutting edge, she'd inadvertently signaled to relationship-focused clients that they were no longer a priority. My phone buzzed again, a text from Jason. Emergency at Summit Edge HQ. Can you come now? Summit Edge headquarters was currently Jason's home office, where we'd been setting up temporary operations. Concerned, I paid the bill and rushed over. When I arrived, I found Jason and Veronica staring at a computer screen, looking stunned. What's wrong? I asked. Veronica turned the screen toward me. Nothing's wrong, but you need to see this. It was an email from Thomas Wells at Valent. After careful consideration, Valent is terminating our contract with Bluecrest Creative, effective immediately. We'll be seeking new representation that aligns with our commitment to meaningful client relationships. The next 48 hours were a whirlwind. By Wednesday afternoon, all three companies, Valent Tech, Greenway Foods, and Sterling Financial, had formally terminated their relationships with Bluecrest Creative. By Thursday morning, we were fielding inquiries from two additional Bluecrest clients who had caught wind of the exodus. This is happening faster than we anticipated, Veronica said during our impromptu strategy session in Jason's living room. We need to accelerate our timeline. Jason nodded, typing furiously on his laptop. I've got our designer finalizing the logo today. The website framework is ready. We need office space, like yesterday. I might have a solution for that, I offered. Harold Peterson still owns a converted house downtown where Bluecrest started. He's been leasing it to a nonprofit that's moving to a larger space next month. Veronica's eyes lit up. That would be perfect, symbolism, returning to the roots of what marketing should be. I sent a quick text to Harold, who responded almost immediately. For you, Dana, it's yours. Let's talk tomorrow. As we continued planning, my phone rang with an unknown number. I excused myself to take the call. Dana Collins? My voice was tentative. Ms. Collins, this is Deanna Wilson, chairperson of the board at Bluecrest Creative. My heart skipped a beat. The board chair herself. This was unexpected. Ms. Wilson, how can I help you? I'll be direct, she said, her tone businesslike but not unfriendly. We've had some concerning developments at Bluecrest. 3 major accounts terminating simultaneously has raised significant questions about our current leadership. I remained silent, waiting for her to continue. The board is meeting tomorrow to discuss these developments. Before we make any decisions, I wanted to hear your perspective on what transpired. Carefully selecting my words, I explained the situation, Brianna's dismissal of relationship marketing, my termination, the introduction of Taylor as my replacement. I emphasized that I had not solicited any clients, that they had each independently reached out to me. And these accounts, they're following you to a new venture? She asked. That appears to be their intention, I confirmed. A long pause followed. Would you consider returning to Bluecrest if certain changes were made in leadership? The question caught me off guard. Return to Bluecrest after being unceremoniously dismissed? After being labeled outdated? A memory surfaced, my father's voice from decades ago when I was considering returning to a newspaper that had previously undervalued my work. Never go back to a place that couldn't see your worth the first time around, Dana. Your talent deserves better. Ms. Wilson, I'm flattered by the implication, but I've committed to a new path. My partners and I are launching Summit Edge Marketing. We've already signed lease paperwork and filed our business formation documents. I understand, she said, sounding disappointed. One final question, if I may. These client departures, do you believe they're about you personally, or about the approach to marketing that Brianna is dismissing? Both, I answered honestly. In relationship marketing, the personal and professional are intertwined. These clients value consistency, trust, and a deep understanding of their businesses. That takes years to build and seconds to destroy. After ending the call, I returned to find Jason and Veronica looking expectant. The board chair, I explained. They're questioning Brianna's leadership. Jason let out a low whistle. After 3 days? That's got to be some kind of record. They asked if I would consider coming back. I admitted. Veronica's expression shifted to concern. And? I told her I'm committed to Summit Edge. Relief washed over both their faces. Good, Veronica said firmly, because we just got confirmation from Sterling Financial. They want to sign with us as soon as we're operational. My phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from Thomas at Valent with the subject line, Contract ready for review. As I opened it, another email arrived from Jessica at Greenway Foods, moving forward with Summit Edge. In just 3 days, we had secured commitments from clients representing over $4 million in annual billing. Summit Edge hadn't even officially launched yet. I think, Jason said with growing excitement, we're going to need a bigger office. 6 months later, full circle, 6 months after that tumultuous week, Summit Edge had established itself as a formidable presence in the regional marketing landscape. We'd moved beyond our founding clients to secure 4 new accounts, each drawn to our relationship-centered philosophy. Our team had doubled in size, necessitating an expansion into the building next door to Harold's original office. The morning of our 6-month anniversary celebration, I arrived early to prepare my remarks. As I set up in our conference room, the front desk called to inform me I had a visitor. To my surprise, it was Taylor Rivera, my former replacement at Bluecrest. "Do you have a moment?" she asked, looking significantly less confident than she had in Brianna's office 6 months earlier. Her designer blazer had been replaced with a more subdued outfit, and her once perfect blowout was now a simple ponytail. I invited her in, curious about the purpose of her visit. "I've been following Summit Edge's growth," Taylor began, fidgeting with her coffee cup. "What you've built in 6 months is remarkable." "Thank you," I replied neutrally. "What can I do for you, Taylor?" She took a deep breath. "After you left, everything at Bluecrest fell apart. Without the major accounts, they couldn't sustain the staff. There have been 3 rounds of layoffs. I hadn't been following Bluecrest's situation closely, focusing instead on building our new agency." "I'm sorry to hear that. The thing is," Taylor continued, her voice steadying, "I realized something important. Brianna was wrong about outdated methods. What you did, building those client relationships, that wasn't outdated. It was foundational." Her honesty was unexpected. "The accounts I was given," she admitted, "they all left within weeks. I couldn't maintain them because I hadn't built the trust you had. I tried to implement the newest digital strategies, the cutting-edge analytics, but—" She shook her head. "It didn't matter. They wanted the relationship, not just the tactics." I studied her carefully. There was genuine regret in her expression, a humility that hadn't been there before. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. Taylor straightened her shoulders. "Bluecrest let me go last week. I'm here because I want to learn from you the right way to do this work." The request caught me off guard. This young woman, who had been positioned as my innovative replacement, was now asking to learn from me. "I don't expect you to hire me," she clarified quickly, reading my expression. "But maybe mentorship? I realize I need to build a foundation before I can innovate on top of it." Her words echoed Harold Peterson's philosophy perfectly, the same philosophy I'd carried through my career, the same philosophy that built Summit Edge into a thriving agency in just 6 months. I studied her carefully. There was genuine regret in her expression, a humility that wasn't there before. I thought about how easy it would be to turn her away, to savor this moment of vindication. But something in her earnestness reminded me of myself at her age, talented but needing guidance to channel that talent effectively. "We have a celebration this afternoon," I told Taylor. "Our 6-month anniversary. Why don't you join us? See what we've built here, meet the team, and then we can talk about what mentorship might look like." The relief on her face was immediate and genuine. "Thank you, Dana. I appreciate the opportunity more than you know." After she left, I found myself reflecting on the strange symmetry of this situation. 6 months ago, I had been the one deemed obsolete, my experience dismissed in favor of Taylor's fresh perspective. Now, here was Taylor, recognizing the value of that very experience she had been hired to replace. I pulled out my phone and texted Emily. The most unexpected thing just happened. Taylor Rivera came to ask for mentorship. Her reply came almost immediately. Classic. Full circle moment. "What did you say?" "I invited her to the celebration today." "We'll see. You're a bigger person than I would be. But that's why you're you." I smiled at my daughter's response. Perhaps this was the true measure of success, not just proving your critics wrong, but being secure enough in your own value to help others find theirs. The celebration. The Summit Edge anniversary celebration that afternoon was filled with genuine camaraderie and shared purpose. Our team gathered in the expanded office space, surrounded by framed campaign successes from our first 6 months. The energy was palpable. This wasn't just a business. It was a community united by shared values. Harold Peterson had arrived early, his 80-year-old frame still commanding respect as he moved through the room, shaking hands and sharing stories. Seeing him here, in the very building where he had started Peterson Design Group decades ago, created a powerful sense of continuity. As I stood to address everyone, I surveyed the faces before me, former Bluecrest colleagues who had found a new professional home, new hires bringing fresh perspectives, and in the back, Taylor, watching everything with attentive eyes. 6 months ago, we started Summit Edge with a simple belief I began that in marketing, as in life, relationships matter. That trust is earned through consistency and understanding. That listening is more valuable than talking. The room nodded in collective agreement. We took a risk. Many people would say that starting an agency based on outdated methodologies was foolish. A knowing chuckle rippled through the room. But what we've built isn't just a response to rejection. It's an affirmation of what we've always known to be true. Marketing isn't about chasing trends. It's about connecting authentically with the humans behind the data points. I looked toward Harold, who was beaming with pride. When Harold gave me my first job in marketing, he told me something I've never forgotten. Trends come and go, but human nature remains constant. People will always value authenticity, trust, and genuine connection. Harold raised his glass slightly in acknowledgement. That philosophy guided us through the early days at Peterson Design Group, sustained us through the growth into Bluecrest Creative, and now forms the cornerstone of Summit Edge Marketing. I paused, looking around the room, and the results speak for themselves. In just 6 months, we've secured 7 major clients, doubled our staff, and exceeded our first-year revenue projections, all by remembering that at the heart of every marketing challenge is a human connection waiting to be made. I raised my glass. To Summit Edge, to relationships that last, and to the understanding that sometimes the most valuable asset in a company isn't a methodology or a technology. It's the people who build connections that matter. Applause filled the room, and as everyone toasted, I caught a glimpse of myself reflected in the window. Not the devastated professional who had packed up her office 6 months ago, but a woman who had transformed a setback into an opportunity to build something meaningful. After the toast, people broke into small groups, conversations flowing easily between colleagues old and new. I made my way to where Taylor stood, somewhat awkwardly, on the periphery. "What do you think?" I asked her. "It's different from Bluecrest," she observed. "More organic. Everyone seems genuinely happy to be here." I nodded. "That's intentional. We believe the culture we create internally affects the work we produce externally." Taylor hesitated, then asked, "Can I ask you something? When when we replaced you, weren't you angry? How did you manage to turn that around so quickly?" The question deserved honesty. "I was angry," I admitted. "Hurt too. 15 years is a long time to commit to something, only to be told you're obsolete. So how did you move past it?" I considered the question carefully. I realized 2 things. First, that my value wasn't determined by Brianna's assessment of it. And second, that looking backward in anger would only prevent me from moving forward with purpose. I watched understanding dawn in Taylor's eyes. "That's what I'm trying to do now," she said quietly. "Move forward with purpose." "It's never too late to learn that lesson," I told her, thinking of my own journey. "The question now is, what do you want that purpose to be?" Private reflect. Later that evening, after the celebration had wound down and most of the team had gone home, I found myself alone in my office. Through the window, I could see the sunset painting the sky in vibrant shades of orange and purple, nature's own celebration of endings and beginnings. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the relationships before transactions plaque that Harold had given me all those years ago. The brass had tarnished slightly, but the words remained as relevant as ever. A gentle knock interrupted my thoughts. Emily stood in the doorway, a smile on her face. "I thought I might find you here," she said, coming in to perch on the edge of my desk. "Congratulations, Mom. The party was a hit. You should be celebrating with your friends, not checking on your mother," I told her, though I was genuinely touched by her presence. Emily shrugged. "I wanted to see how you were doing. Today was a big milestone." I nodded, running my fingers over the engraved plaque. "It feels surreal sometimes. 6 months ago, I was packing up my office at Bluecrest, wondering what was next. Now, now you're the founder of the hottest boutique agency in the region," Emily finished, "with your former replacement asking to learn from you. That has to feel good." "It's not about vindication," I said, though there was undeniably a certain satisfaction to it. "It's about validation. Knowing that the principles I've always believed in, the ones your father believed in, the ones Harold taught me, still matter in this digital age. Emily's expression softened at the mention of her father. Dad would be proud, not just of the success, but of how you got here by staying true to yourself. I've been thinking about him a lot lately, I admitted. Remember how he always said that life's challenges were just redirections, not roadblocks? Emily smiled. His favorite metaphor. When one door closes, don't waste time knocking. Find another door and kick it open. We laughed together, sharing the memory of Michael's characteristic optimism, the same optimism that had sustained him through his illness and that had, in many ways, been his final gift to us. What about Taylor? Emily asked, bringing me back to the present. Are you really going to mentor her? I considered the question. I think so. She has talent, and she's learned a hard lesson about what matters in this business. Besides, I added with a slight smile, what better way to ensure our approach survives than to pass it on to the next generation? Emily nodded approvingly. Very strategic, Mom. Very relationship focused. As we prepared to leave for the dinner we had planned, I took one last look around my office at what we had built from the ashes of rejection. The journey from Bluecrest to Summit Edge hadn't been about revenge. It had been about validation, proof that genuine relationships and authentic marketing still mattered in a world obsessed with the next trend. The clients who had followed me hadn't done so out of loyalty alone, but because they recognized the value of a partnership built on understanding and trust. In the end, Brianna had been right about one thing. It was time for change. Just not the kind she had envisioned. The real innovation wasn't in abandoning proven approaches, but in recommitting to the human connections that make marketing truly effective. As I turned off the light and closed my office door, I felt a profound sense of peace. Sometimes, being told you're obsolete is just the universe's way of telling you it's time to prove otherwise. And sometimes, the most powerful statement isn't a grand gesture of revenge, but simply letting your true worth walk out the door with you, and watching as it grows into something even more valuable than what you left behind. Opening, the LinkedIn post revisited, 6 months after that fateful LinkedIn post. Sometimes necessary changes mean goodbye to outdated methodologies. I sat in my new office at Summit Edge Marketing, reviewing our quarterly performance reports. The irony wasn't lost on me as I scanned the numbers. Our outdated approach had resulted in a 42% growth rate in just half a year. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Taylor Rivera, once my replacement, now my mentee, stood in the doorway with a tablet in hand. You'll want to see this, she said, placing the device on my desk. It was a new LinkedIn post from Brianna Wells, excited to announce my new position as Digital Integration Specialist at Tech Forward Solutions. After a challenging tenure in traditional marketing, I'm thrilled to return to the tech sector where innovation and disruption are truly valued. #onward Santaports #fresh start. I looked up at Taylor, who was trying unsuccessfully to hide a smirk. I heard from a friend still at Bluecrest that the board finally had enough, she said. 3/4 of declining revenue will do that. I nodded thoughtfully, handing the tablet back to her. Everyone finds their place eventually. Maybe the tech sector is where Brianna truly belongs. That's very generous of you, Taylor observed. If I were in your position, I might be a little more satisfied. I smiled. The best response to being undervalued isn't revenge, Taylor. It's success. As she left my office, I turned to look out the window at the view of downtown Fresno. Somewhere out there was the Bluecrest Creative Office building where I'd spent 15 years of my career. And here I was, in a converted Victorian house that had once been the original Peterson Design Group, the full circle journey of my professional life. My phone buzzed with a text from Emily. Lunch today? I have big news. Definitely, I replied. 1 p.m. at Giuseppe's? Can't wait to hear. I returned to my quarterly reports, but my mind wandered to the journey of the past 6 months, from that moment of shock in Brianna's office to today. From being deemed obsolete to founding a thriving agency that embodied the values I'd always believed in. Sometimes, I realized, the endings we fear most are simply the beginnings we need most. And sometimes, the most powerful statement isn't what you say when they show you the door. It's what you build after you walk through it.